Hello everybody and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me. I've just been having a chat with Mike on the phone and he kindly allowed me to take the conversation. So without further ado, I talked with him about his recent investigations and how he got into the subject as a whole in the beginning and bring you up to date with the Werewolf Diaries. There we go. Because we always end up talking about some really interesting stuff, me and you.
Yeah.
I did write a couple of things down that I wanted to go over with you because I think some people are under the impression that every time you go into the woods, if you see one of these creatures, then it's all doom and gloom and you're going to be killed. And we both know that that's not true. But in the beginning, you mentioned something and it stuck with me that you did get a feeling of disdain, almost like...
Well, there's two basic feelings. One of total indifference, and then I just got the feeling in one after, just like I was muck on their shoe. You could definitely feel a certain level of distaste and certainly not welcome. So I put that down to that sort of 6-8 months. I suppose I'll call it probationary period. There's a couple of times, one in particular, like 12th of Feb, Sunday morning, where there was three of them. I was thrown to the spot. I was absolutely petrified. But they were just, they were hunting pheasant, and the one to my left caught one. I could hear the bones being crunched. So I think it must have just eaten this thing whole. Because I could hear the bones crunching, and then the one behind me barked,
right,
and that's what sort of snapped me out of it. I just ran back to the car. The one where they were throwing stones at me, and they were literally hitting me on the back of the heel, left and right foot, as I was walking.
Right.
I've had the bush shaking violently. One trip up to Cheshire earlier this year, tree shaking.
It would move most humans on, wouldn't it, when we think that they do some of this behaviour to move people on, the stone throwing and the bluff charges, and even you mentioned it in the document that you made, this heavy breathing that's above your head or at the side of your ear. So we're looking at an intelligent being that could just go to violence straight away and isn't. He's trying to move people out of the woods. And then you stuck it at a long time, didn't you? It was a long time, a good 18 months before things started to change for you. And I think you just got used to having you around.
Yeah, it's I think once you're in a certain area, and a lot of this sort of research or hobby is repetition. Going to the same place, and you're comfortable with them, and they're comfortable with you. But sometimes I think I mentioned this before. The example being Thetford Forest. You can be completely complacent and just completely off guard, and you go to another location, and you're just you're thinking this is going to be like Neely Woods or something like that.
Yeah.
But and Thetford Forest just gave me the willies all morning for the whole 4 hours plus I was there.
That doesn't surprise me. There's some, there's some strange reports come out of Thetford. The red-eyed things, and me and you both know that that's normally a sign of anger.
Yeah.
But
it's. I'm glad I can tell you I've done it. I've been. Obviously, I want to go back at some future point, but it's certainly getting the courage up to go back because there was 4 locations I wanted to go to that morning. That's what I did. I chose 4 specific sites that I wanted to visit, and I sort of spent an hour in each. But just the whole time it was just even though there was still people around walking their dogs or horse riding, it just felt off. It really had me on my toes.
Well, I think you're used to you know how they feel. You kind of
Yeah.
pick up on their intent, and you're dealing with a different group there, aren't you? One that's not used to.
Oh, yeah. But, the thing is that the very last section of the forest I went to, because I started along this road, and I kind of just basically did a full circle. And the fourth and last section was more or less not far from the spot where I started. And I found a couple of structures, and I was in there, and I just turned to my right, and about 300 metres over to my right, there was another structure, but there was a pair of golden eyes just looking out back at me. I took a picture, and I thought, right, that's my day. So I went back to the car. But as I was leaving, I had a great sense of relief. Yeah.
Just what you've picked up on when you've been there. I mean, you know them far better than me. And I know you've told me before that they really don't have much of a white to their eye. And I can say that most of the witnesses that make reports of them, either red eye is most prominent, and I think that's because it's more noticeable, that people notice it more in the woods in the dark. But the majority is almost just like a black eye, or this yellow amber eye shine. And I mean, we don't understand their eye, do we? Like, we don't really understand the canine's eye either, so we don't know what makeup's in there.
The vast majority of the ones I see, like I say, they have a solid eye, black eye. There's maybe about 2 or 3 that have the golden eyes, and then there's one that has blue. I've only ever seen one with red, but the vast majority, like I say, have this solid black eye. There's one up there I call golden eyes, and there's another one that's only got one eye. So he's got a golden eye, but there's one up there that I call golden eye simply because she is the only other one that has a full set. And the other one, I managed to get pictures of that one twice.
Right.
And he's got a left eye, but the right eye's gone. Whether it's been lost in scrapping or something like that, I don't know.
Yeah, an accident or something. To be honest, there's been some really recent reports of red-eyed creatures. 7 feet tall, very broad at the shoulder. Cannock Chase area, Essex, and up here near me at Winter Hill. Now, that's what I would call one of the great wolves, like you. Incredibly broad. But you know far more about the physicality of them than I do. I get just very quick witness reports. People have just seen them for like a split second or something like that. But I must express to people who are listening that you've been at this at least 3 years that I know of.
5 in total. There was a couple of half-hearted attempts, June, July 2016, but like I say, my first serious outing was Christmas Day, Sunday, 2016, and I went up to Chevy Heath, and thick fog, and I parked in a car park belonging to a pub, and I walked across the road, and I went into a corner section of a wood, and on the left there's like a single road that goes up to a farm, and there's an open field. And as I'm walking into the corner section of the wood, something in my left eye, I just like a movement, and I turned. And I caught the right shoulder and the right side of the head. And whatever it was 2 foot bigger than me. It just turned back into the fog, and that was when I was like, right, okay, I'm a believer now.
I'm a believer now, yeah. Oh, that kind of got me heart pumping a bit.
But oddly enough, I mean, that was, I think it was either May or June of the same year, 2017, where, the following year, where I first saw my first wild man walking in between some trees. But the thing is, in the first weekend of January 2017, that's when I found the birthing den, where I took the picture, and it's peering out. You can just see the muzzle and the nose, and it's just leaning slightly out of the top cover of a tree. But it's a birthing den, and I had a few other pictures. But that weekend, the weather was just rotten. But it really started proper weekends, or when I get days off. And then obviously obviously just trying to spend as much time up in Mooney Woods. Well, say Mooney Woods is about 7 or 8 different woods and Mooney Green, and obviously sort of trying to figure out which zone is where they live, or the playground, where they go hunting. I mean, they hunt all over the woods. I actually, it was only about a month ago where I saw another deer taken. So this time with like a big, long black arm just came out
and just took it
from the undergrowth and just took this deer like in a judo throw and just took it and it was gone.
I think the first time you saw that, for anybody who's new, they actually jumped from the tree. And now anybody that's into this research will instantly think, I've heard that before. We very rarely look up when we're out researching. Well, I do now, obviously, but in the early days when you had all your attention's down on the floor, innit, and you're looking for structure and sign and footprints. And that time for you, he actually came from the tree, didn't he?
That was, I think, November 2018. And I was walking around this tree. It was a really cold, horrible, rainy day. And I was walking around this tree and I was thinking, there's one here. And I just walked off about 20 metres or so off to the left. And I started pouring a cuppa, and these 3 deer came down a pathway. And they went past, and where I'd just been stood, this huge block of black fur just came out of the ground, out the top of the tree, hit the ground, went off to the right. And I was just, I literally was ready to the spot. Of the 3 deer, 2 ran back, and I thought, it got one. So I just dumped everything, and instead of going back, I just went over to see if I could find any blood, guts or gore, but there was nothing. It was just like it just picked it up on the run. But the speed of this thing dropping out of the tree, hitting the ground and going off to the right was almost like the blink of an eye. It was just fast.
The fast and fluid is the way. And there's this other thing. There's this. It's one of the things that creeps me out. I'll be honest. It's the ability to jump from a standing position really, really high. I mean, the reports on Snowdonia, he cleared a 6-foot fence from just standing height.
In 5 years, I've only ever seen one ever jump through the air. That was 2018 again. And I just sort of finished up the afternoon. I was walking back to the car. And I had 2 following me, one on my left and one on my right. And I couldn't see them, but I could hear them because they were deliberately making a noise.
Letting you know.
And then the one on my left just went suddenly quiet. As I'm just a few metres from the main road, this thing just leapt out 20 or feet so, like a ballerina, just doing a high jump. Like it was just gliding through the air. It was just graceful and effortless. It was that's one of the most awe-inspiring things I've seen.
Could you imagine just walking out of the woods one day, you hear a bit of rustling and you don't really know what's, there's an animal in there following you. It's not like that for you. You know what's in those woods and what's following you out again. I mean, how do you keep your nerve together?
Well, 6-8 months, that was... I was... There was days when, I felt okay, and then... Because actually, after that incident on the 12th, it took me about another 6 weeks to get the gumption to go back.
It's understandable. It's understandable. It's a 7-foot killing machine that can be silent if it needs to be. It can use infrasound on you. We'll get into cloaking in a bit. Yeah. I mean, they can cloak so they can disappear in front of your bloody eyes. You've got mothers protected of young. It's not surprising that we do stumble in on these incidents. And, I mean, we can even talk about the missing later on, but there's all that goes around it. This, killing machine. But you notice something that many others maybe have, I'm not sure, but there are actually different kinds of them. I think everybody
Yeah,
thinks it's just this one kind of wolf out there, bipedal wolf, whatever name we want to give it.
Well, I know we have about 3 types, and basically I call them a long tail, short tail, and no tail. And the sort of, because the guys I visit, they've got long tails. I think one guy reported seeing one that didn't have a tail, and it seems to have like a short tail. Maybe like some England.
Have you noticed a difference in aggression in them? Is some more so aggressive than others?
I still hold that the more north you go, the more open terrain that there is. The more, I wouldn't say that, like that, they're hunting people and what have you, but I think they're just a bit more, slightly aggressive, a bit more in your face.
More territorial, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the ones down here, are slightly more passive because obviously there's a lot more people around because, there's a lot more activity down here in the southeast. I say they come into town, so there's plenty of scraps and what have you. But I certainly think the more open terrain, the more they know there's no one there to compete with them. I still believe that people have been taken. I'm kind of in that camp now.
Yeah, we can talk about Paul Kemet. That's one area of the UK where we can say that there has been wolf reports, and there was this missing male, and that's another one that comes under the no suspicious circumstances umbrella. Yeah, I noticed quite a few around the Bury St Edmunds area as well, and an area in Leeds where we've got lots of cryptid reports, and we do have missing males, and it seems to be males rather than females.
Yeah.
Possibly would maybe see them as aggressive or aggression or something. Maybe they feel more threatened by a male than a female,
I think when it comes down to deliberate targeting, I think that is a very rare thing. But I think in most cases it's like just being in the wrong place at the wrong time and doing something,
to trigger it. Yeah. Well, that's it. We stumble into things, don't we? Like we said about, we know that there's structures and dens, and we know there's females around and young, and I'd fight to the end for if anybody's trying to do it in my, I think it's exactly the same for them. Many people will say to me, I'm wrong to encourage you in what you do, but they don't know you like I know you. And you've had them around the home and you've had no trouble, No,
actually, I'll send you a couple of pictures later. One that was just about 2 doors down. They're outside the front door. I got a couple of pictures of them watching me when I go to the car, because I normally sort of leave for work about 5:20 in the morning. And, there might be 100 metres, 150 metres away from me. I've got one hiding behind a car looking at me, another one on the street. Bearing in mind that the River Kennet is only about less than 200 metres from the door here.
Easy access, yeah.
And they're down there. But at the moment, I say they still come in the back garden. They're at the front of the house. Normally I just go out for a sort of last smoke at night, 10 o'clock. And there's one that's been kind of, I suppose I'd call it guard duty. They're definitely watching.
I suppose they're curious. You found a structure just at the back of the fence, didn't you? So.
I tell you what, I know this might be a bit hard to believe, but there went through a period where they were flipping the locks on the door.
Yeah.
And my missus is in the kitchen, and they're doing this about sort of 5:45, 10 to 6. And, she's calling out my name.
Yeah.
And then about 6 o'clock I walk in, and she's like, why do you keep
why are you messing with the
door and then walking out? And I'm not, I'm just coming right now. And then we got a double security lock on the front door. And 3:10, maybe 3 weeks ago, 3:10 in the morning,
right,
on a Monday, both locks flipped and the door opened.
Oh.
I just went downstairs, I was having a look around, there's nothing. So I locked the door, went back upstairs, got back into bed. And I was just thinking, guys, come on, I've got to be up for work at 5 o'clock. And there was, I kind of drifted off for a bit, and then I woke up. I looked up, and there was one in the doorway of the bedroom, just looking.
Just watching.
Maybe that 4 years ago now. No, 3 years ago. The one that was tapping. I was in bed, and I could feel this sharp object tapping me on my right shoulder.
Right.
And but before that, it was this cold breath on the side of my head, like heavy breathing, and then I got this tapping, like a forefinger.
Yeah.
And a nail.
Yeah.
Just tapping me on the upper arm, and then it walked down to the end of the bed. I was like, okay, I'm going to count to 10. Open my eyes. And if it's there, I'm going to freak out.
Yeah.
I hope there's nothing there.
I mean, people would think that with me and you are probably crackers, but for me, there's always been a curiosity about them. I want to know, how they live, what they do, how they have the young, all of the above. And there's lots of other people that have those questions as well. I've only ever seen them in my home once, and that was after the night on the barrow, and I think that's because I gave him a choice. Because I realised when I was up there that he was kind of bound to the land. He wasn't able to leave in any way, almost like he was enslaved. And I said to him, I mean, he was awful with me at first, don't get me wrong, he really was. But I felt that night he just kind of pushed me off the hill. We just physically kind of pushed me down the hill. Didn't do anything and make a noise or anything like that, but he was really angry that I was there. And all night I really felt compelled to go back. And the next day I asked Mark to take me back, and he did. And I said to him, will you just leave me sat here on my own for a minute while I have a talk? And he went, and I just said to him, look, I know you've never had a choice, but I'm giving you one. You can stay here, or you can come with me, or you can do both. And I just heard this voice in my head saying, nobody's ever given me a choice before. And I said, well, as long as you don't scare my children and you don't upset the neighbours, I'm perfectly fine with you coming around. Yeah. And that night I was working, I was sat at my desk in my bedroom just tapping away, and I knew that if I looked up, there'd be something on the stairs. And I had that little battle inside, where you're like, don't look up, and then, you got you've got a devil and an angel on both shoulders and one ear's deaf. So I just thought, I'm going to look. And I looked up, and he was magnificent. He wasn't frightening. He was absolutely magnificent. He was very black in colour. He's very shiny, beautiful coat. And he just looked at me silently. I never said a word. And I called him the silent one for a really long time. And then I asked, weeks later, he was on my mind, and I asked what was his name, and I got the name Mac. And so that's how I think of him in my head. And I was working on a case in the Galloway Forest with a locksmith that had encountered 2 great wolves on a property. And he'd started doing a lot of investigating into ancient names and place names and things like that. And he sent it over to me. He said, I've come across some really old Celtic names for you, Deb, to have a look at. And the very first one on the top was Mac, and it meant the wolf. Yeah, and I thought, that was very fitting. And I don't see him all the time, don't get me wrong, he's not sat at the table, but every now and again, I'm a bit worried about something, or I'm a bit scared, I'll kind of get a vision of him in my head, and it'll give me a little bit of strength, and I think, right, it's almost like a guide for me, to be honest. So we're talking about, really, I just finished speaking about the Mac, as I call him, that I seen around the house, and as you were just explaining to me then, you've seen them around the house very recently as well.
Yeah. To say them only just gone. Sort of nipped out the front about 10 o'clock for smoke. Mm-hmm. And like I say, normally before I go to bed, I always get this feeling that there's someone along the alleyway just watching. And I sort of opened the door, looked left and right, stepped out, and more or less instantly, just all the hairs on my body just went up, and I had a bit of that sort of vibe that I talked about, just sort of kicked in instantly. Yeah. And I turned to my right, and I got my phone out, and I took a picture, because there was something moved street lamp into the shadow. And I just managed to get the back part of the upper right arm as it moved. You can see the guy's fence line and the ladder. And in broad daylight, obviously you can see right through to the other side where you can see houses and there's a gap.
Yeah.
But so where the gap should be, you should be able to see some of the trees that go on the back of the River Kennet.
Yeah.
And there's some down there. But obviously, it's blocking the view. It's that big and wide. It's actually blocking the gap between the view of the two houses.
Yeah, I'm running the images now as we're speaking so people can see them. Makes it easy for them to understand. And then this, I mean, I don't want to jump off subject, but that's one thing that you do. You got a very good photograph near a gate. So you went back and you photographed the gate in the daytime, making so you can show that there's no anomaly there. There's nothing there that you could be mistaken for what you've seen. And that's what's happened with the ladder shot, isn't it? There's nothing there. It's not a chimney. It's not something man-made. There's nothing there to account for it to be blacked out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you can see almost like the upper shoulder and the upper bicep, a bit of an elbow, but it's kind of moving out of the light into the shadow. But yeah, it kind of made me give a little jump because I normally the normal drill is sort of wait 5 minutes and you start picking up the vibe. But this was just like almost instant. So I think it was surprised just as I was. I don't think it had time to sort of get settled the evening. Actually, what I'm thinking about doing is maybe setting up a camera in the bedroom, looking in the main window, keep the curtains on, and say between the hours of 2 and 4 in the morning, see if anything starts sticking its head up against the window.
Yeah, what have you got to lose?
It's actually trying to convince my partner that to do it.
I know what you mean, though. You'll find that you'll watch it. I mean, I did the same. I've got a camera out back and front, and I spend hours, on rainy days going through it trying to see. And I've never really picked anything up, to be honest. But honestly, the cameras that I got are not that great. They're not the most modern camera, so we're due for an upgrade. But you're not the only person who does this, is interested in this subject or investigates this subject where things show up at home. And obviously, like you, at first, you go out and you find your area and you start getting to know your clan or your pack. And that's when the visitations at home started. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about was actually the clan members. So I don't think I've ever got you to do that. Would you tell me a little bit about each one?
There's, the most prominent one I have contact with is a large female. Initially, when I first pictured her, December 15th, 2018, carrying a cub. She was about 9 foot tall. And, the first name that came into my head was Peaches. And I think it was last year I got a really close-up shot of her because she was sat behind me. When I turned around, she was there. And I took a picture. And then, I sent it off to Richard Van to see if he could sort of sense anything from it.
Yeah.
And he actually, for about 5 days, he couldn't sort of sense anything. And then he texted me early one morning. He said, no, a name called Rumathala came through. I mean, whether they named themselves individually or not, I don't know. But he said that was the name that came to him. So he kind of sensed like she was the senior female. So there's one old one I call Big Boss. I've only seen him twice in a couple of 5 years, but I mean, he's like just like a super-sized mate, humongous. And then there's one I call Fluffy, the cub, which I've not seen since 2018.
Right.
I mean, obviously he or she's a lot bigger now. There's one I call Golden Eye because there's another one that's only got one eye, Golden Eye. So I call him One Eye, and then there's Golden Eyes because in last year during a nighttime session, July, August time. Earlier this year, there was another part of Nooney Woods I went to, which is right next to Nooney Green. And there was just only about 20 of them up there. There's probably about 5 or 6 large adults. That area is home. I've never known them to sort of leave. I mean, I suspect they don't leave at all. But there's always this sort of quiet period, end of December, going into early January, where, you know, you'll see 1 or 2, but the rest they're just not there. Where they go, I don't know, but I know there's a lot of abandoned chalk lines, and then they just start turning up late January, and you know there's cubs running around already.
Well, this is a good time of year, isn't it? The new food's coming in, everything's everything's birthing at this time of year. It's if you're in tune to the natural cycle of the earth, then this is a great time to give birth, you know. Good weather's on its way. It'll be near, you know, we're only 4 or 5 weeks off summer, so it makes perfect sense to me. You hear with the wild one as well. It seems to be the first new moon in January. People will. There's just a quietness from middle of December to about mid-March. This year's different, but normally there's a real quiet time. And then once you get to the new moon, say February, March, when the new food stuff's coming up, you start getting new sighting reports that come in. So there's definitely an ebb and flow, you know.
Yeah.
Have you been out recently?
Oh, yeah. I was doing, because I say normally there's a section of Nooney Woods I sometimes go to, so I know the wild men are around from sort of January to April, end of April, and then you know they kind of like sneak away, and then the wolves kind of dominate. But this year I haven't seen much signs. I've seen in an area where I normally see bedding, where they just snap the fir branches. They kind of make like this bed on the floor.
Yeah.
I couldn't see any of that this year.
Right.
All I got was canine.
Just this year is completely different. I think it's to do with COVID as well, and the fact that, you know, for the last 12 months there's not been that many people out and about. I know it does seem like that to some, but the roads are dark at night. It's much quieter. There's less cars on the road. And I think they've taken advantage of that. I really do.
Yeah. I've done. Normally, like I say, I come up to Whitney and then I leave early hours of the morning to go to work back to Reading. And you know, sometimes about 10 to 5, 5:15, there's a section I drive around. I always get the feeling that, you know, something's going to jump out. But let's say the thing is, the traffic's starting to pick up.
Right.
There's an area where I just kind of feel there's always something there. I mean, I've never had the situation where something's jumped out and sort of made me go, oh God. Yeah, just feeling something's around. Like last Thursday morning, 5:20. I just thought, no, I've got to be there. There was a couple of young ones there, and Sunday afternoon I was out, and I found a couple of trees had been pushed over, and I found a young'un, because they sort of burrow out from the base of the tree, and they got the roots sort of kind of providing some sort of front cover, and I kind of saw it and I thought I backed off a bit, but
well, that's good. I mean, you must be connected far more than you know if you're picking up on that they're in an area and you feel compelled to go there. You know, that's the bond, isn't it? It's a connection somehow. You know, and I've actually put there's a photograph on the screen now of the den that you're talking about. It's very natural looking, you know.
Yeah.
Very natural looking, would blend in, you know, not your typical bushcraft, as people would say. It's very interesting to me. I've seen similar things in Scotland, in Cloddymoss, which is an area way up near Inverness. But yeah, very similar thing, and normally in the springtime as well. Do you remember the strange deer leg in the tree mystery that we went back and forth on? Do you remember that? I keep finding these deer legs that hung up in trees. Yeah. We had another one this year, just this weekend gone.
Right.
Lake District, which is the first. It's never been the Lake District before. But for anybody who doesn't know, it's normally a male deer leg that's hung quite high up in the tree. Very fresh, and we don't know why. I wouldn't class it as cat-like because there's no other body parts around, and the legs are normally twisted and hung up in the tree. And I just wondered have you ever noticed when you're out anything like bones in the tree?
I found deer parts all over the place. I found a couple of sheep skulls. I found sort of pigeons that have been stripped. But, you know, I kind of think maybe that could be any kind of predator, you know, fox. But the deer, like I say, I mean, earlier this year I just saw a deer get taken down.
Yeah.
And it was hiding in the hollow. It was like a big left arm that just came out of the ground and just grabbed it like a judo throw. And it flipped this deer on its side, and I just saw the white underbelly. It was just, I mean, the arm coming out over this big black arm. And it was just, you know, that kind of seemed like take forever. But when this deer came back, it was boom, it was done. I think that was about the fourth time. Yeah, I think something taken down. You know, but the one that really is the February, 12th of February one, where there was three of them, and then the one that jumped out the top of the tree, where I've been. I think it was November 2018. And, you know, again, you know, it was a cold, miserable day, rain, and I'm walking around a tree and I'm thinking there's one here. And I walked off maybe about 20 odd metres off to the left. These three deer walked by, and it just hit the body, you know, this big block of black fur, just out the top of the tree, hit the ground, up to the right. And it was almost like a blink of an eye speed. It was, you know, two deer ran back because there was three walking along the pathway. And I was pouring coffee, I froze, and then something kicked in and go, let's find if there's any gore. I went and I couldn't find anything, so I can only assume it must have picked it up on the run.
As you're speaking to me, I've got an account in Africa, and I know it doesn't seem like it's connected, but one of the things that they talk about is these like half monkey, baboonish creatures that they can't describe that drop from trees incredibly fast and take down wildlife like impalas and things like that. It's exactly the same motion that you're speaking about there. And they just lull the animal into a false sense of security by being up above it. And then they just drop down, grab the neck, twist the neck, or the leg if it, you know, it's not as swift. And it's done, it's over and done with. And away they take it and it's gone. And it's so fast and so smooth. As you're reading it, you're thinking that couldn't be possible. But I've seen shadow move that fast. I mean, I call it shadow. It makes it easy for me to deal with it. But you know what I mean. I've seen that movement and how swift it is. And it's, for me, I can't dwell on it because it just pulls up the fear factor of, I don't know, it just triggers the fear in me. It's different for you. You've built up a stronger relationship than I've got.
I mean, that's what, twice where I've frozen literally, you know, to the spot where I've been absolutely terrified. There was another time where I was found some prints and I was following it, and my brain was going turn around, and I just felt whatever. I don't know why it just felt like it was 200 meters in front of me, but it just kind of felt like that. And I was thinking, this thing's hungry and it doesn't care. So, you know, I sort of bowed out and called a couple of times, where I've literally been ripped, frozen to the spot. But, they just completely ignored me. But I think it was, certainly both occasions, it was just the fact that literally right in front of 12th Feb one, they just rose out of the underbrush. I never saw it. But he went up, it was on all fours, and it just seemed to be like moving effortlessly, like gliding. And he went up on two legs and then turned left into the tree line. And he just really wasn't bothered if I was there or not. I was so surprised and shocked, I just stopped.
Well, I've had a lady get in touch with me, and she's in a similar situation. She's been working in the same area for a long time. So she's had an interest, and she's finally had a sighting. You mentioned something, and it ties into the same theory that me and you have on hair. She said she didn't know whether she was looking through it as it was moving, or because she could see the greenery through it. So I explained to her about this hollow hair theory, that it kind of bounces back the surroundings, so you get that predator thing. And that's kind of what she was describing. She could see the movement and the shape of what was making it, but it was almost like she could see through it. So I went back today and I had a look at how many times that's come up, and it was at least 25. There were 25 other people that had called it everything from a glimmering right the way through to a prismatic being. And they're talking about something that's reflecting back its surroundings. Have you ever seen them? Oh, you have. You saw the cub, didn't you? Learning to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was in. This was 2017. This be about end of March, April time. I just I was on a back road. Just come off Dead Man's Lane, turn left. I was taking a back road home, and there was I think it was about 2 or 3 horses, ladies riding horses coming up towards me. So I pulled over, stopped, and I looked in my right side mirror. I did a double take because it was this what looked to me like a massive wolf's head, but the shade was matching with the greenery around it. And I was thinking, the horse is going to jump or bolt or what? But no, they just carried on like nothing was there. And then I can't remember who, but someone sent me a photo from another forum of one up in a tree from Australia in 2015. You can see the outline of a canine head, but the head is matching with the bark of the tree, the foliage. Almost like a 3-tone camouflage pattern. Like
a natural ghillie suit. The hair is a natural ghillie suit. Yeah. So no wonder they can hide in plain sight if that's what you're dealing with. And trees and shadow and perspective, it all plays into it.
I sort of kept that to myself for a long time, and until so somebody sort of sent me that, and I felt a bit more relieved because sometimes you can see or experience something, and then somebody goes, you're not going to believe me, but this happened to me, and you go, well, funny enough, it happened to me as well. After a certain period, you kind of get accepted, and I can be pretty blasé in Mooney Woods or the surrounding area, but like I say, go to the forest. I was on my toes for over 4 hours, and then there was a place I went to, but it certainly kind of got my interest. There's a village just outside Whitney called Minster Lovell, and there's some woods around there. And about 2 Saturdays ago, just after lunch, it was a really nice afternoon, and I just got this urge to go there. So I thought, all right, got in the car and went there. I turned to my left, I was at a park stop, and I turned to my left and looking through the trees, and something big, black and furry just moved in between the trees. So I thought, right, okay. I drove off, and then following weekend came back prepared, And sure enough, I found a makeshift den walking around, but the vibe I was getting was like, well, okay, you can walk around, but you can have your 5 minutes, but you got to go. You know, they'd already sussed out what I was there for. Second time around, I went this Saturday, and it wasn't too bad. But, you know, I could hear movement, but I couldn't see anything. I walked into a clearing, and I just kind of felt there was a couple, maybe about 300 metres further down on the left,
right.
You know, watching me. Took some pictures. But I found a print, and it definitely, as I'm walking back to the road, you know, that sort of unease kind of dissipated. You know, it got better as I got to the road. But as I got out of the car and walked into the wood, and maybe got about 100, 150 metres, then, you know, obviously it starts picking up. You know, you start, whether they're projecting that feeling or not, the hairs go up. But it's sort of like, well, okay, you can walk around, but you can go in like 5 minutes' time, because after that, you got to go.
What are your future plans for this year? What have you got lined up?
There's some spots in Gloucestershire that have kind of got my interest.
Mm-hmm.
Some parts in Cheshire, you know, my home county. I'm going to try and compile, or try and do a part 2. You know, the Canis lupus. Yeah, a few more field reports, try and make it a bit more meaty. There's sort of interest, say Gloucestershire, Worcestershire, Herefordshire, Nottinghamshire, I've been up there twice. Went to see a chap who in contact with me. I mean, you know, the first trip there, we saw about a 6-7 foot grey one walking in between the trees. Back up a second time, me and my partner, we parked up, got out of the car, looked across the road, and there was a big, massive black one low to the ground in a field, and the tree line's not that thick, you can see it. I looked at him, he looked at me, and he was gone. Right. He bolted.
There's a lot of tunnels underneath Nottingham that stretch up through Derbyshire and come up to the Pennines. They go down south as well. So it's worth me asking, if anyone's listening, if they know of any areas where they've picked up on something like this, get in touch with me and I can get in touch with Mike, and then I'll get you two of you chatting, because they might be able to get you into an area where they've had either an experience, or they've picked up on something strange, or saw the structures that they've seen going past as we've been talking. So if you can help out and you can suggest anywhere that Mike could visit over the next few months during the good weather, let me know. My email address is in the description below, and I'll put you in touch with Mike. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'll be picking up with him again in about 6 weeks' time, and he'll give us an update on how he's been going and show us some more images. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'll speak to you all next week. Good night, everyone.